Kevin Hughey, super attorney, is in the studio with us. Hello, Kevin.
Hello.
Are you annoyed by Jim Carrey?
That clip, yes.
It does. That one has a high burn factor, as we say.
Nails on a chalkboard.
We're going to start with an email right away. I'm going to throw you right at the wolves. This came in. Doesn't want his name used on the air. RAD@radradio.com. If you've got questions for Kevin, you can call, you can write. We're going to talk to him about some other stuff going on in the world as well. But this guy says, I've been living with 2 roommates for the past 2.5 years. One guy who we'll call a douchebag, and a gal who is a very close friend. No romance in any direction of the triangle. A douchebag was fine when he moved in with us, but gradually over time got worse. At one point at a Halloween party we threw, he grabbed one of our friend's breasts. Not his friend, but one of our friends that they had invited to the Halloween party.
Jesus.
Another time he got drunk and slapped several of, again, ours, not his, female friends' asses. And then there were multiple more misogynistic behaviors, and it continued to spiral into worse narcissistic and egomaniacal behaviors. We found out in January that he went behind our backs and made payment plans with our landlord because he couldn't keep up with rent. Fast forward to the end of April. We found out he was behind on these plans, and we were on the verge of eviction.
Dang.
His mommy ended up bailing him out, paying $2,000 in back rent. And after his mom paid off his debt, the 3 of us and our landlord made a signed agreement amendment to our lease that he was physically out of the house April 30th, but his stuff would stay here until June 3rd when his new place would be ready. In this agreement, he must call 24 hours in advance to move his stuff out, and we have changed the locks as of April 30th. He doesn't have access. Here are your specific questions, Mr. Hughey, he says. Number 1, if he does not contact us tomorrow, are we still obligated to open our doors for him to access the property on Saturday? He didn't pay rent for May. Storage was a nice gesture from us. Does he have to call tomorrow?
First of all, I'd like to say that was a rough time in my life. I've got treatment since then. I'm better now.
Oh, man.
That's a bit of a sticky one. If they were the landlord has an obligation to store stuff, right? It's horrible. They eventually, after a long period of time, can auction it off, but they can't undertake what's called self-help. They can't just sell the stuff or keep it. The roommates probably have a similar obligation. I would start with what agreement do they have? And if they have an agreement that's ambiguous, then I would say it would be in their best interest not to just dump the stuff. But
wording matters, how that agreement
absolutely.
is. Okay, so he got specific with that first one. Well, if he doesn't call tomorrow, does he have to have access Saturday? Okay, then they go, you're already knowing where they're going. If he does not contact us on Friday, and he doesn't show up on Saturday, which is not unlike him, would there be any legal repercussions of us moving his stuff to the street Sunday morning? Could we technically start moving it out without him on Saturday? And if we do move the stuff to the street on Sunday, would we be held responsible for any missing or damaged items?
Probably.
So they're just stuck with this stuff until this guy pulls his head out?
They can put it in storage, but he's liable for the costs, but you can't just dump somebody's stuff like that.
So they could put his stuff in storage, but they're going to have to recoup that money from him if they want him
Jeez,
to.
good luck.
Or they're better off just finding somewhere for the stuff, because if they what's the statute on that? How long do they have to keep his stuff?
Honestly, I don't know, and I would say that what I'm describing are landlord obligations. So extrapolating, I think they probably would apply to roommates as well, because you have personal property that belongs to somebody else in your possession. You can't just do what you want with it.
So the next question for them would be to find out how long are they responsible to keep this stuff.
Correct.
In other words, because I've worked with you for so long, this is that keep your powder dry. We don't need to go nuclear if we don't need to go nuclear approach, because you're setting yourself up for potential problems.
Right. The way out of this would just be to reach a new agreement with them that if you're not here on Saturday, we get to dump the stuff.
Get them to sign that.
Period. Yeah.
So what if there is, say, an accident and stuff may have gotten near an outlet that caught on fire and the stuff burned up and it's no longer there and they had to clean it up?
Yeah.
Or maybe it got water damage and they had to throw it out.
Wine, a whole bottle of wine. I mean, where does that line, that Kyle-like gray area come in?
Well, they say it's not about truth; it's about what you can prove.
Oh,
So
I like that. It's a great line.
I just don't know if that guy's worth all of that.
Right, you got rid of him. You got rid of him.
I mean, and that's just like keeping that is like adding drama to your life to add that. So why can't they just reach out to him? Like, if I want his stuff gone, I'm not going to wait for him to call me. I'm going to call and go, are you coming? I don't care if I have to set it up like his mommy. I want his stuff out of my house, right? The end goal would be his stuff out of my house. Who cares how that happens? Who cares if I had to be the one to call him to say, hey, we're reaching that date. You coming to get it? If not, I'm going to find out how long it's going to be here, and then it's going to be over here where you have to get it. I don't know, whatever it is that you find out. Because, I mean, isn't that the objective? Get it out of your house.
Right? There's nothing. That's the mature way. If they genuinely just want this stuff completely gone, and if he's irresponsible, like what they're describing, preemptively just try to get it done.
Right.
In some way. And his mom might pay for the truck or whatever they need.
Exactly. Who cares? I'm not going to sit around and wait for him to call me. No, I run my own life. I'm not sitting around waiting for you. Hell no. That's ridiculous. You're letting him have that kind of power over you. You think you have the one up because, like, oh, well, if he doesn't call me, can I do this? No. Call him. Take charge of your life.
Phone number is 888-989-9811. We're with super attorney Kevin Hughey. Hello there, Andrew. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey.
Morning.
How are you guys today?
Good. How are you?
Good. I got a question for the attorney. I have squatters on a commercial floor at the entrance to my gate, and I'm having trouble getting them off. They claim they own the ground. They've been there for 5 years now.
Wow.
Now, that's a long time, but this squatting issue is really big across the country with all of the homelessness and the poverty, bigger in big cities. And it started in homes, and it has now moved into commercial property. And there is, depending on where you are, there's a lot of protections for them, aren't there?
There are, and the 5-year period is a big problem for him because there is what we call adverse possession. So for a 4-year period, if you occupy something openly and notorious to someone else's title, it does become yours.
Whoa.
What? When they say they own the land, they didn't pay for it. How do they own that land? You usually have to exchange money to own a property.
If I go sit on Rob's front lawn, and Rob, we both know it's not mine, and I stay there for 4 years, it could be mine.
Wow.
You ever see those
Oh my
plates
God.
and sidewalks in front of tall buildings, skyscrapers usually that says something like access by way of license? That's to avoid adverse possession for people walking by or standing there.
So when you're sitting on my lawn on day one, what do I do so that you don't get to stay there for 4 years and this turns into a problem?
You say it's okay for you to sit there.
What?
That way, what I'm doing is not hostile to your title. I'm not adverse. You're letting me.
What about the whole it's my private property, I want him evicted thing? I want him moved, Sheriff.
Fire hose.
Oh.
Oh my God.
It could be a real problem. In the situation that I posed, it's residential, right? The cops would come. Commercial property, they probably don't care much. I mean, is there some sort of threat to health or safety? If there isn't, they're going to say it's a civil problem. Go deal with it.
So could these folks go and just move to a public park, like a Yosemite or Yellowstone, whatever, and no, that's it? They own it now? They can just stay there?
No, because we own public parks.
But we
Taxpayers.
also own, our taxes pay for our home. We also pay taxes within that neighborhood.
It's right, but
And so does that business owner.
right, but the citizenry, we own public parks, public lands, so that can't be hostile to title.
But that makes no sense. He also owns where his business is. It's like the same thing.
No, it's not the same thing.
Oh my God, but it should be. Logically.
But in that example, we would have to give people permission to go to public parks. Does that make
But you're
sense?
not just, yes, you're not right. You can just go to a public park, and I can also just walk in front of the sidewalk of a business or walk inside their business. I guess essentially they're giving me permission by having their doors open. Okay. But I mean, does his line stop? Does he own where they're squatting? Right? Because a lot of business owners will own the land around where their building is and not just the inside of their building. So like if he actually owns the land they're sitting on, where it's the same thing as the house thing?
And that's why when you see those plates in the sidewalks, because the skyscrapers oftentimes they'll own into the street or into a portion of the sidewalk. That's actually private property. So they put a license there.
Wait, I'm still confused about this poor guy and his 5 years.
I know.
got a problem.
This is awful.
How did he get to 5 years? We don't know that. But back to the fire hose comment. When he first discovered them, did you get the impression this is an abandoned piece of property?
Well,
Okay.
People there for 5 years.
And what are you telling me? There's nothing he could have done over the first year or so?
He could file suit and get a restraining order.
That's where he called, but he's going to be civil, right? He's going to. That's where he calls you or somebody similar, and then you have to go through the process of dealing with somebody who doesn't have any money, who's squatting on your property and forcing them. You get like a some type of judgment on their behalf, and then would the cops remove them?
You could give that to the sheriff, and they would probably do it.
What a pain.
Okay, so say the squatter shows the property. Do they have to use their primary address as that property as well to become a squatter? Or can they just sit there and make up a lie and say they've been there for 5 years? And then my second question is, you made the fire hose comment. Can you, if they've been there for 5 years, still hit them with the fire hose? And then are they able to get you in trouble by any means with the law?
The answer to the second question is yes, you could get in trouble, because under that hypothetical, that property is now theirs. So you'd be fire hosing somebody on their property.
Oh,
Wow. That's insane.
A lot of this law
This
stuff
is so insane.
This is why you get so frustrated with me when we go down these roads with various stories that are in the news, because a lot of it is, it's maddening to a lot of us.
Right, but you also have to ask yourself, who lets somebody on their property for 4 years?
Right.
Continuous.
That's still my big question.
Yeah, how did that happen?
I mean, that's a long clock.
It is.
Hello there, Jay. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. How you doing, Rad Crew?
What's up?
Hi.
Hey, so I got a question. This is not completely real estate related, but I've owned my property for 15 years. I had an invasive bird start knocking out all my little vents into my attic.
Oh.
I decided to take evasive measures and purchase an air gun and handle it. I did my due diligence, contacted all the proper authorities before, and went around, asked all my neighbors. 2 of them did not respond to my contact, and then one of them started complaining. Now I had helicopters fly over my house. I had cops sitting around waiting, and I've even contacted the authorities after and discussed it. But I'm just curious. This guy has flown drones over my house. He's put up cameras blasting into my backyard. I've had to set up privacy measures now, and I'm just curious, where should I go from here? Because things have gone nuclear, as Rob evaded to earlier.
I'm not sure I follow all that. I mean, how many rounds did you pop off for the bird to get this kind of response?
Only like 2 or 3, and only at my property and nothing else. But there's accusations on some sort of like Facebook community that they have that say that I'm just shooting things and there's broken windows, and that is completely not the case. I'm a responsible gun owner. I'm a hunter. That's not the case.
Do you have a history with these people before all of this? Like, did they already not like you?
No, this is actually the only person complaining is a renter that's been there for less than 2 years, and everybody else I've known for 14 years and have a great history with. Even walked around last night, and yeah, everybody's cool with everything.
So back to the question of where he goes from here.
Pain.
I'm honestly not sure. I can tell you one very disturbing thing is that there is no expectation of privacy outdoors, even in your backyard. So when it comes to drones flying over, it's illegal to shoot them down.
It's illegal to shoot them down.
I mean, I still would.
Yeah, can you accidentally throw something out there?
yeah. What do you mean by shoot?
It's not the truth. It's what you can prove.
I was
Remember.
playing ball, and wow, this ball.
So
knocked
when it
down.
comes to him being surveilled, I'll say there's not much you can do about that.
And so if this drone is in your backyard and you somehow disenable it, he could if he can prove that you did that, depending on how if he's got a monitoring system for it, he could come after you for damaging his drone.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is it criminally or civilly or both?
Civil.
Okay, so you'll get sued for the cost of the drone in an example like that. And by the way, the guy made a comment about it's not just about real estate. Kevin does everything. He's primarily a business attorney, but he knows all this other stuff too. In fact, here's one. We just got this email from Matt.
Hi, Matt.
It says, I have a friend who was in a relationship with this dude who knew he had herpes. So the dude knew he had herpes. They were sexually active for 3 months before he told her. She got tested. We are waiting on the results, but if she does have an STD, is there any legal recourse for her?
I believe there is a fraud civil claim and a battery claim.
Both.
Yeah. That is actionable. Absolutely. I don't remember which specific claims are in play, but to not disclose and then give somebody something that they were unaware they could contract, that's actionable.
So, I gotta word this correctly because people get sensitive. Did she ask him? I mean, when you're deciding to have sex with someone, was there not a conversation? And on top of him having it, he also lied about it. And just for anyone else out there, that should be a conversation you have with someone. They still could lie to you, But I mean, we can't go blindly into these sexual relationships and be surprised by diseases.
Also, on the issue of what you can prove, would she have to then prove that she did not have herpes prior to him, especially such a common, prevalent STD?
And prove that she didn't get it from somebody else.
Right.
Yeah, that's right, because it could lay dormant for a long time.
Oh.
Yeah.
This is one from Lori.
Hey, Lori.
Is there a legal limit to the amount of time a dealership can keep my vehicle for covered repairs? It's been there for over a month, and I read somewhere that they have 30 days to complete repairs, but I don't know if that is a law. What is my recourse to start a fire under them? I call and pester the service advisor multiple times every week. They are blaming the car company for not authorizing the repairs yet. I called the car company. They said they have no record of an authorization request. I need my truck, and I'm so frustrated. Jesus.
There should be a service agreement, and the provision, there should be one in the service agreement detailing how long they can have it. But if there's not, I don't know what the law is. I mean, at some point, if someone is maintaining possession of your property beyond what you ask them to do, it becomes almost a theft scenario.
Phone number is 888-989-9811 for Super Attorney Kevin Hughey. Hello there, Lane. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Hey.
Good morning, Kevin.
Hello.
I have a question. My grandparents chose to get their 2 bathrooms remodeled last year. However, it's been over a year, and neither one has been fully completed. The contractor has also gotten them to replace their water pipes, the roof, and their flooring. But now the contractor's not even returning phone calls. Every time that they say that they're going to be at the house to attempt to do the repairs or the remodeling, they don't show up. So what can we do to, again, light a fire under them? Or, I don't know.
I would start with the California State Licensing Board, the Contractors Licensing Board, make a complaint. That goes to the heart of their livelihood. They can have their license suspended or pulled. But other than that, that's even if they're licensed. They may not be.
Right. Oh, God.
Ooh.
I mean, it all starts with the contract. What was the agreement between your parents and this company or these people?
Oh, God, I hate people like this. Taking advantage of the elderly is what they were doing. They talked them into all this stuff.
Well, pending what we know.
Well, I'm just
it
saying.
could be that.
From what we've been told. This
Yes.
is all I have to go on.
True. All right. Got this email, rad@radradio.com from Patrick.
Hi, Patrick.
We are with Kevin Hughey, super attorney. This is more straight up Kevin's alley in terms of, this is why he and I work together so much, employment law, things like that. Says, my wife was offered a job from her friend of 40 years. She worked there with the agreement of getting a salary plus commission. They've been friends for 40 years. She hasn't worked there for 40 years. She was laid off during COVID. Then a year later, her friend asked her to come back. Agreement was the same as sent through an email. After about 6 months, the owner friend came to my wife and said the business was struggling and couldn't afford to pay her commission until business improved, with the understanding that my wife would get commission back paid to her. The understanding. Was that in writing? Yeah. After 8 months, my wife went to her friend owner and asked when she would be getting her commission back, and her friend told her she was fired and wouldn't be getting her commission, totaling about $40,000.
Damn. Oh, my gosh.
Does she have any recourse?
She sure does. Of course, I mean, you touched on it. It depends on what the agreement really was. Whether it was writing or not doesn't necessarily, it would be better if it was. But if her understanding was she would be getting the commissions reinstated at some point, then she's got a separate retaliation issue. She's asking about her money and she gets fired. That's kind of solid prima facie case of retaliation.
Does it matter that the letter writer's wife, if she overtly agreed when the friend owner said, you can't get commissions because we're struggling, does she have any liability for saying, okay, that could be argued against, if, hey, you knew this was the deal?
It could be, for sure. If there wasn't a set time frame, if she didn't agree to a time frame or reinstating the commissions, then yeah, she could have a problem herself.
Now, as far as the agreement, does it have to be in a binding contract physically, or could the understanding be in the email where she can show proof that, we talked about this via email?
Email's fantastic.
Great question. It doesn't have to be this super notarized, drawn up thing all the time.
No.
Hello there, Tom. Go ahead.
So my question is, my daughter's working at a U-Haul, only been working there about 5 months, and the owner works there also, calling her names like the B word and the C word.
What?
And and she quit the other day, and I want to know if she has recourse for that.
Yes. I mean, that's just a clear, solid yes. That's what we would call constructive wrongful termination, such that the work environment has become so bad that somebody is forced to quit.
Yes.
That's a wrongful term claim.
So is it literally just find an attorney like you, and that's where it starts?
Yeah.
They don't go to any commission. They just go to somebody who specializes in all this. All right.
How toxic.
How many kids you have?
2.
Okay. So we're going to kind of segue from attorney to citizen parent for a second. Then we're going to go back to attorney. Because it's a big story. Social media. How old are your kids?
10 and 14.
90% of U.S. teens aged 13 to 17 use social media on a regular basis, according to a new report. 75% of them have at least one active social media profile, and more than half visit a social media site every day. 2/3 of teens have their own mobile phones with internet access. Do your kids have phones?
The older one does because he splits households.
And does he have full internet access?
No.
And how is
He
that?
better not.
How is that monitored?
Through Family Link, Google.
So you guys, and you check it regularly to make sure where he's going and what he's visiting.
And I do spot inspections.
What about the old argument of friends? He can always see stuff on friends' phones and things like that.
You can't stop that.
So this is just the reasonable precautions that you're trying to take. 10-year-old doesn't have a phone yet.
No.
Good. Good for you.
All right. So all of this dovetails into this report that came out earlier this week. The number of teenagers saying they feel sad or hopeless persistently is now up to a record high of almost 60%. Almost 2 out of every 3 American kids say they feel sad or hopeless persistently. The proportion who say they are seriously considering attempting suicide.
Oh, God. Oh, my God.
1 out of 3.
Oh, God.
That's doubling in a decade.
No.
Experts suggest that social media could be a major cause because it encourages people to compare themselves to others, addiction, FOMO, fear of missing out. The American Psychological Association put out recommendations to help parents, et cetera. How much of that do you buy? How much of this is lazy parenting? How much of it is crappy society? Where do you come down on that?
I would go with options 1 and 3. I mean, as a parent, you're obligated to do everything you can, but you can't do everything. I do believe that social media is toxic for kids.
100%.
Not just because they compare themselves, but because the people who are on social present a much varnished, bright, shinier version of themselves in their lives that don't gel with what, is in reality. So everybody looks like they're having a better time, a better life.
So one of the things that's been starting to happen, of course, nationally, you've heard about specifically targeting will TikTok be banned, and it's because this is what happens when it becomes difficult. We look for somebody else to kind of do it for us. Montana did pass a bill last month to ban TikTok from operating in the state. It doesn't take effect until January. The idea is it prohibits downloads of TikTok, and they will fine any entity like the App Store $10,000 a day for each time someone is offered the ability to access the social media platform.
Wow.
So you wouldn't get it as the user, the big companies would. Opponents argue that not only can you use a virtual private network to hide where you're actually located, but the main argument is this is unconstitutional because it amounts to government overreach, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to get challenged right away. Does this stuff have legal muster? Or is this is not going to fly.
That's a political stunt.
The banning of TikTok is not going to fly.
No chance.
Do you feel the same way about the United States as a whole? Because federally they were talking about it, and then it went nowhere. Is it because of the same reason?
It's unconstitutional. You have to have at minimum, the lowest standard is rational basis for what you're doing and the connection between the harm you're alleging. If what they're alleging is the harm from social, they would have to ban all social, not just target one.
Could the United States, now we're back to the federal idea, could they claim that TikTok is a threat to national security? We're only going after TikTok because they're China-owned, they're propagandizing our children, they're not showing their kids the same thing. Would that hold up when it finally got to the Supreme Court?
I don't think so.
So going back to the kids being, so depressed and wanting to commit suicide and just how it's so toxic with social media and everything that Kevin said, one of my girlfriends, they were like, oh, whoa, okay. We did a poor job in how much time they were allowing their daughter to be on social media. And they said it was like almost like weaning a drug addict off of drugs, the way the kid would respond to not having it. And then they said their child became the person they knew before. Like literally was happy again, could have conversation, wasn't, I mean, you're still a normal kid with normal things, but it was like on steroids, the difference between their kid once they just took it away. And I think now their girl can go back. It's very monitored and it's very limited, and they're definitely watching out for that personality change, because everything that Kevin pointed out, everything is, I mean, come on, for adults it's toxic. For adults it is
Absolutely.
extremely toxic, and all of those things. Imagine what it is for a child that hasn't had our life experience yet. Their brain is still developing. Oh my God, it's awful.
Hello, Melissa. Go ahead.
Good morning.
Hi.
I just wanted to make a comment about the social media with the children and committing suicide. I have 3 daughters, and my youngest daughter actually had one of her best friends for years turned against her and went on social media and told a lot of secrets and everything, and ended up telling her and a bunch of girls ganged up and saying, "Why don't you do the world a favor and just kill yourself?" And just bullying. And it got to the point where at school she didn't feel comfortable going to school, had to change schools, but had to get into counseling. And it's nasty, nasty children that just go on there and they feel like that it's better to just pick on the kids and make them feel like they are recluse. And thank goodness, she didn't do anything to that extent. But it got to the point where, these kids are saying, do the world a favor, kill yourself. And then they say all your secrets and everything's on social media now. And it's sick.
And so, Kevin, if we broaden this out with kids, obviously all that true. Social media, big problem for everyone for all the reasons we discussed. But what about in general, because one of the things I do is I see a lot of crap with in the news that I don't bring to the show, but I still see it, and so I save it up every now and then, and I might not bring it to the show because it's so goddamn depressing. But when we get into this conversation about social media parenting and all of these things, it was so easy for me to pull a week's worth of stories. 12-year-old girl in Oklahoma stabbed her 9-year-old brother to death. A girl with no previous, according to mom and her school, no previous aggressive behavior, no behavioral problems. In Houston, a 3-year-old accidentally shot her 4-year-old sister on Sunday around 8 o'clock. There were 5 adults in the house. They all thought each one was watching the other. The girls are in the bedroom. They find it, and she shoots and kills her 4-year-old sister. An 8-month-old boy died Saturday after his 3-year-old brother picked up an unsecured firearm and shot him. These stories of kids,
God.
10 and under, are endless. I one from memory. There were 2 6-year-old boys that held down a 6-year-old girl in kindergarten and forced her to give one of them oral sex while the other one iPadded the whole thing.
Oh my God.
And I see these stories endlessly.
Oh my God.
And it's
oh my God.
Social media, a big part of it. Is this just the breakdown of society, parenting, or is this just overblown because I have access to all of these stories?
You're killing me, man.
I know.
Oh, Jesus.
And when we do the
Lord.
parent stuff, it's one of the most popular things that we do. So we got to turn the valve now and then we're just going to go back to having a little bit of fun, hopefully.
It is extremely stressful. Kids are cruel because kids don't know what they don't know yet, and a lot of them are just stupid.
Yep. Yes.
The stuff that my kid repeats when he gets home, stuff that is said to him, I mean, it's unbelievable. Or the stuff that he hears being said to others. And then to Dawn, your point, seeing that stuff splashed on social, it's I cannot tell you how stressful it is, and there's no way to protect against it.
See, that's the added layer. Like when we were young, the most that would know it are maybe the kids on the street, right? Or the block over. But now every school in town, or just anyone and everyone, they have access to share it everywhere about you. And the you is like 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old, even high school. You cannot. It takes a while for an adult to have such a sense of confidence that they don't really truly care what other people say. You don't have that yet when you're a kid. That absolutely can destroy you.
So how does a guy who's working full-time as an attorney, your wife's still working full-time?
Mm-hmm.
How do you guys do it?
Look at me.
Yes, if you're watching on RADTV, Kevin's 28 years old. Hello there.
Oh my God.
Jake, good morning. Go ahead.
Oh my God.
Good morning, Rad.
Hey, what's up?
Hi.
My question is for Mr. Hughey. Years ago, this was June of 2017, I was assaulted in a restaurant. And at the time that this happened, the owner of the restaurant told myself and told the sheriff's deputy that had come out. The sheriff's deputy was called by the acting manager at the time. It was an 18-year-old kid, had told us that the cameras that are in the building were not working. So after a long 2-year process of going back and forth, this guy went to a lawyer, said that I actually attacked him, and it just turned into a whole my word against his word thing for 2 years. Everything did eventually get settled and dropped where, there really wasn't much for us to do other than try and go through a trial that was going to be just a long, painful, expensive process. So we dropped everything. It's recently come to our attention now because there are new owners of that restaurant. We've run into some other friends. We started going back to this place, and it's come to our attention there's actually video, and there are people that have actually seen it. We can't prove that yet, but what my question for you is if there actually is a video, and we can somehow get a hold of this, what is the statute of limitations? This was June 10th of 2017, so it's been just about 6 years. Is there anything we can still do if we actually do get a hold of this video?
No.
Because of the statute?
Yes, but also it would depend on how the case was resolved. There could have been a waiver of claims. If the case was settled, then getting the video doesn't matter. It also could have been that the new owners, I'm not sure if he said seeing the video, if seeing video functioning or video of the incident, but the statute of limitations is a problem. I think it's 2 years for battery, and also how the case was resolved.
Hello there, Terry. Go ahead.
Yes, how you doing?
Hey, what's up?
I have a question about a property up in Nevada, and I was having a couple drinks one night with some guy. Hey, can I park my boat on your property for a little bit? Now it's a planter box. I don't have title to it. I don't have. How do I get it off my property besides paying $3,000 to have someone come get it?
So you let a stranger park a boat on your property for $100 because you're drunk?
No, a neighbor.
Okay. Okay. Have you talked to the neighbor?
Yeah, he's like, I'll get it, but time is elapsing. So I want to put a chain to my truck and drag it across the street to his house and drop it, but then there might be something happen to me for that.
Oh, okay. That's smart. Because you never know how people will
always
act
check
and what rights they have.
Yep.
Typically, the self-help thing could get you into trouble, but if it's your neighbor, I would not have a problem. Buy a used trailer and
or just rent one to keep the cost down, right? And
just drive it across the street and leave it in his driveway.
Do you know what? I might also even make him a part of the process. Hey, I got this trailer coming. You want to come out? We'll both watch this, and we're gonna move it on over to your property. I want to help you out, buddy, so you can have it back. This makes it easy,
And if he's being unreasonable, then you just get a little bit more unreasonable and take actions. You don't see anything the neighbor can then do as a recourse for him giving him his boat back.
Not on those facts. The easiest thing to do always is just try to make a deal. It doesn't have to be anything sexy or comprehensive. Just move your boat, or I'm going to take it to your property.
So this is the third time since you've been here today that we've worked our way. Although Dawn did it the first time, which was scary. Where we've worked our way back to just a common sense, calmer solution, which is always your preferred approach. I know, and we've been doing this a decade or more, I think now, you and I, and you. As the attorney on the other end, because usually we're talking on the phone, you have certainly heard me very animated and agitated at times over the years, and yet you always stay calm. I don't know if you and I ever got into it. Maybe once a little bit a few years ago, but I don't really think we did. I think I remember a little, but we resolved that quickly. I'm usually yelling about who we're dealing with. How do you do it?
Why are you pointing at me?
I was thinking the same thing.
That was interesting, wasn't it? Huh. I can't be the only hothead you deal with. I'm probably not even the worst.
Correct.
Right?
Yes, Rob, that's true. It's first of all, it's just that's the way I see things. It's problem solving and getting emotional, getting angry at clouds judgment. It's fine to vent and get it out, but you can't make decisions based on that. Also, it's my job.
Yeah, there's probably no room. Well, this might sound funny, but there's probably no room to get super emotional with law. This is the law. It doesn't matter how much you scream or shout or whatever. It's the law. It's written. That's what it is.
A big thing with lawyers, the reason substance abuse, suicides, things like that are very high in the profession is they internalize other people's problems. Our job is to deal with other people's problems.
Like
when you
a
internalize
therapist.
that, it'll just eat you alive.
Speaking of the law, multiple surveys over the last month have been consistent over the last year. I always say that when the institutions break down, that's when you know society is really in trouble. Whether it's military, law enforcement, or the courts. And I'm sure you've seen the surveys and the studies. Confidence in the court system, and in particular the Supreme Court's, at an all-time low. People believe everything now is decided political. People on both sides think they're not using the law, they're using their own personal politics or whatever. Where are we? Because the Supreme Court, you and I are similar age, and the Supreme Court for a long time was always like, okay, well, that's it. Supreme Court said it, we might not like it, we'll go on about our lives. Now it's not so much. Now it's the Supreme Court said it, we're going to follow people, we're going to dox them, we're going to threaten them, we're going to try to cancel the business that goes to the wrong side of it, because they just don't believe it. Where do you see these institutions from your, since you're right in the middle of it?
The Dobbs case, the leaked opinion,
which would overturn Roe v. Wade.
Yeah, was the catalyst for all this. I think that was a window for liberals. This is a very conservative court, and I think that was a window to create an agenda and drive most of the politics. I was somewhere between irritated and heartbroken when they leaked that decision. That just does not happen at the Supreme Court. It's a sacred institution.
Yeah, you were a little emotional about it when you came on the show to talk about it.
I've never heard of anything like that happening before. It was unbelievable. But I mean, justices are human beings. People who complain about them voting their personalities or politics, of course they do. They all do. That's how they are made up. Their mindset is based on their experiences, their training, their beliefs. That's how they form their opinions.
See, I think like if Kevin, if you, Rob, were to say those things like you just said, I 100% believe that is where it's based in as to why you may question further things with the Supreme Court. I do not give society that much credit. I feel like they use it as an excuse. We're babies. We don't like to be told no, and they are raised now to not accept anything from any authoritative figure. They are taught to fight everything. And if it's the opposite of what they want, then it's wrong. Like, so I think that is, I think the way we're reacting now is just how we've come as a society.
And we do see it. You mentioned and certainly for Dobbs, that was the left wing side version to get to stomp their feet. We see it on both sides where they become like you mentioned. This is a very conservative court in theory, 6-3 appointed conservative justices. But now a lot of people on the right are getting very angry that the Supreme Court is refusing to do things like ban a state ban on assault weapons in Illinois. A lot of gun advocates are like, wait, what the whole point of having the court 6-3 is we're going to get some of these more, and guns are a big topic with our audience. But the Supreme Court keeps sending these back to the states, and gun advocates say that the Bruin decision of 22 meant no, we're not supposed to be doing. Where are we, guns? Where are we at in this country?
Good question. I think though the article you're referencing, that was not on the merits of the case. That was purely a procedural issue.
A lot of people screw that up, don't they, with these court decisions? They think that was on the merits when no, it was a technicality or something.
That case is up on appeal right now. And when you appeal a case, you have the option of asking for injunctive relief or not, meaning stop everything until we decide this. They probably did, and the appellate court said no. So they appealed that part of the decision to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said no. A big part of what you have to prove is likelihood of success on the merits. You have to prove in your briefing that give us this relief because we're going to win. That's a tough standard.
Hello there, Sergio. Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, Kevin, I have a question. I work for a trucking company out of Tracy, and I drive local. The main headquarters is in, I think, North Carolina. Anyways, in February, they switched us to 4 days a week, and now for holidays and sick time, they're only paying us 8 hours. Do I have any recourse to get those other 2 hours from them?
I'm sorry, you cut out there a little bit. I didn't hear everything.
Okay, hold on. Let me. Okay, sorry about that. So I work for a trucking company out of Tracy here, and I drive local. In February, they switched us to only 4 days a week now. And now for holidays and sick time, it only pays 8 hours instead of 10 hours because it's 4 days a week. Do I have any recourse to get those other 2 hours from them? Because I talked to my manager, and he wrote that up to HR, and HR said it's our policy to only pay 8 hours.
Well, it can't be their policy because they weren't doing that before. I would say it starts with whether or not you have an employment agreement. What does your agreement say? Also, an employer can't just change the terms of your employment midstream unless there's a new deal reached. So I would look at the terms of your agreement.
But if the original agreement, whatever it was, allowed for this what he's talking about with this 8 hours, they can do it.
Sure.
And well, like we always say, they can do whatever they want. It's just a matter of whether or not there's recourse.
Right, but if their policy said 8 hours, but they were paying him for 10, then they've done what we call an implied modification to their agreement. They weren't paying him 8, they were paying him 10. So his argument is, no, our agreement was 10.
Here's a similar one. I've got this email from Aaron. It says, my fiance is a construction foreman and civil engineer. His company's been doing major budget cuts. He travels a lot for his job. He has a company vehicle, a gas card, a Home Depot card, and a low per diem. His company has recently been making him bunk with his crew members to save money. Now he's in the trenches with his boys all day long, making phone calls and appointments with inspectors, and then at the end of the day when he drives home, he has to clean up his truck and restock it for the next day. Travels anywhere from 3 to 6 hours away for the week, and he got written up for having overtime. They told him they will not pay him for drive time to and from job sites for the first and last hour of the day, or he has to take his own car, which he doesn't want to do because he doesn't want to bring his tools in them. He has had no other issues, and they're refusing to give him a raise or pay any overtime, even though he works off the clock. Does he have any rights to go after them for back pay?
Several. Anything relating to travel as part of the job, even if his tools are in his car, you have to be compensated for that. That's an easy one.
I just swear to God, like these people that are willing to do this for you, and that's your response to them. I mean, honestly, the job requires them to drive, and you're going to tell them to take their own car? That's ridiculous. You got to. I mean, I would feel like you have to. Well, if this is part of my job that you want me to do, you have to compensate me, even if he's driving his own vehicle. That's just absurd, and that he's overtime for you.
Is there?
He's doing your job for you.
Like the previous caller, is there an asterisk with some type of employment agreement in which it says we will provide you a company car, but ...
I don't think so. I think that's against California law, and you can't contract around law. I mean, he's got claims that he probably isn't even aware of. If he has to go out of town for a job, all of his time he's got to be compensated for. I mean, if he's sleeping in a hotel somewhere, he's on the clock.
He's not. It's not like he scheduled a vacation. Like the only reason he's going out of town is because you're sending him there for his job. Like it's absurd sometimes with bosses.
But a lot of it, as we know from both sides of it, Kevin, is what you can get away with, and it's not cheap usually to hire lawyers, attorneys. It's a pain in the ass, and a lot of employers also will push and push and push. Some of them, and then there's a lot of employees who don't understand that they don't actually have the rights they think they do. And it's a constant battle, right? It's not like it's always the employee, always the employer for you.
Employment law is very busy all the time. And the rules change. I mean, this is California. The rules change every year.
And I get, like, if you have lazy people that are just trying to get away with stuff, that's one thing. But if you have someone who's, like, competent and hardworking and doing the extra stuff, dear God, why are you fighting with the person?
Well,
now he's making himself sound. It's all I have to go on.
Right. It's not even it's not even him. It's his wife or whatever that wrote it. We're getting that story.
Right. Okay.
Maybe he's having an affair for all we know, and this is how he's covering for it.
Oh my God.
Kevin, thanks for joining us, man. Always great to have Super Attorney Kevin Hughey.